Welcome, good afternoon, morning, wherever you are, and welcome to today's webinar on developing teen leadership. My name is RJ Montano, and I'm the communications specialist for the Teen Science Cafe Network. I'll be moderating the webinar today along with Sarah Fike, the Teen Science Cafe Network Community Coordinator. A key aspect of the Teen Science Cafe program is to have the teens lead and have ownership of every aspect of the cafes. Yet developing leadership skills does not always come easy. Today we're going to have three experts share with us their stories, lessons learned, and techniques in developing and mentoring a teen leadership team for their cafe programs. Each will give a brief overview of their program, and we'll have an open mic chat at the end for all your questions. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes to allow anyone running late to log on, having trouble doing so. While we wait, we'll go over a few items. You'll notice the comment box to the right. You can type questions, comments in this area, and I'll be monitoring those throughout the entire webinar. After the webinar, the Teen Science Cafe Network YouTube page is where you'll find a recording of this webinar and all of our other videos. We'll send an email to the registered participants with the URL of this recording and a link to a survey to get your feedback on the webinar topics. We'll also keep you up to date on anything that's going on with Teen Science Cafe at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+. Just look up Teen Science Cafe Network on all those platforms, and we'll be able to send you a message so you can follow us and we'll follow your organizations back. Let's get started with the conversation today. We have a Q&A session after the presenters, but feel free to shoot any pressing questions or comments in the box here on the right. Right now, I'd like to welcome our first panelist. She's joining us from Boulder, Colorado, the Science Discovery Teen Science Cafe, Dr. Alexandra Rose. Alex is the coordinator for the CU Discovery Teen Cafe since 2013. She runs an experimental residential field ecology course for high school students every summer and is the director of the outreach and education for the Niwot Ridge Long-Term Ecological Research Program. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Alexandra Rose. Alex, go ahead. Okay, we will get back to Alex. We'll try to check to see what's going on. We're going to go to, actually, New York, Schenectady, New York. Joining us from the Museum of Innovation and Science, My Science, Schenectady, New York, Danette Carl. Danette is the Education Program Manager at MySci, where she worked for the last 3 years to create innovative and fun hands-on programming for the students and the public. She's attended the University of Albany and graduated with her BA in anthropology and a minor in biology. Danette loves stargazing, leading planetarium shows, and creating natural-inspired art. Danette, the floor is yours.
Hi. All right, so I work in a science center in Schenectady, New York. So all of our cafes are held at MySci. It's centrally located in Schenectady and relatively easy to get to, but our network of teens, leadership team, they come from the surrounding counties as well. We have a very large pool of people in this area. There's Global Foundries is nearby in Malta, which is a semiconductor plant that does outreach, and GE is located right in Schenectady. We've got Union College in New Albany, so the teens reach out to people from all these different fields to come and be speakers. And a lot of the times, the teens don't even have to be the ones to reach out to the professors or the scientists. They actually come to us, or they have a coworker who is interested, which is what just happened with some professors from UAlbany. They're coming to speak about particle physics, dark matter, and some black holes. And their coworker heard about it and thought that was pretty neat, so he's going to come speak the next month on his work with the Large Hadron Collider. And our leadership team is made up of about 10 teens, and it is slowly but surely growing. Every cafe we try to do some outreach to gain more leadership members. Not everybody comes to the meeting, and not everybody participates every month. So we like to have a large leadership team to reach out to all these professors and pick the food and help set up. So we have a form available, an interest form, and anybody who's interested in being on the leadership team is welcome to attend our meetings and help us prepare for the cafes. So our cafe has been open for about a year and almost a year and a half. Most of our cafes have been astronomy related. So my side is getting to be known as an astronomy space kind of place. We have a planetarium here, and we've got the Challenger Learning Center, which was just installed a year ago. So I'm not surprised that we have a lot of interest in space with the teens. I think that's about it.
Did I jump in?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry about the glitch there.
Is this Alex?
I'm Alex Rose, and I work for CU Science Discovery. Science Discovery is a K-12 science education organization based on the University of Colorado Boulder campus. And we've been involved with the Teen Science Cafe program since the beginning of the network grant. So for the third, I guess we're in our fourth year doing cafes, so 3.5 years of cafes so far. We began our cafe program because Science Discovery traditionally does a really excellent job reaching younger audiences. But then after kids stop coming to summer camps and after school programs, we tend to lose them, especially in the high school years. And we wanted another shot at getting them exposed to a variety of different scientific topics. And it also works really well for the university to expose students to the variety of disciplines and excellent research that's happening here on our campus. Our physical home for cafes is at our Natural History Museum on campus in a really funky and cool space called the Bio Lounge. And we feel that that space really helps provide some character and fun environment for our cafes. The first year we ran our programs, like the first semester, and I should say we have typically 7 cafes during the academic year, and we sometimes do a cafe in the summer, just depending on availability. So our first year, the first semester we did the cafes, we didn't have any kind of a youth leadership team. We were just really busy figuring everything out and kind of generating a consistent audience of teens. And so our second year, we basically invited anybody who was interested in the idea of a leadership team to come to an ice cream social one Saturday morning and tell us a little bit about what kinds of roles and responsibilities they might like to take on and how things might work. And we've sort of just been revising that original mission since then for our leadership team. We have about a dozen teams that are on our youth leadership team. Like Danette, we are not selective, so anybody who wants to join is welcome. And we don't expect people to come to every cafe. They just come when they can and are expected to participate. We organize our teams using a Google Doc, and I sent that link to Sarah, so I assume she'll make that available to everyone. That has a spreadsheet of the various responsibilities that we ask our teams to sign up for. And those roles include things like helping us make a flyer and then hanging it up at their schools, taking photos at our cafes and posting them on our Facebook page, introducing and outroducing our speaker, running an icebreaker for the cafes, being on our welcome committee, which basically means greeting people and signing them in. We have an RSVP policy for our cafes, so we can plan for food and often for the activity. And then general setup and cleanup, and then writing a summary of our cafes for the full cafes section on the network website. So those are the responsibilities that the teams have the option of signing up for. What the teams don't do is basically help sort of prepare the speaker for the actual event. And also the teams will give us, we ask them to help us choose sort of general topics, but I actually am the one who finds out who's available to give talks on particular topics. Once we did have teams actually bring us a speaker that they really wanted to invite, and that worked fantastically. So we encourage them to do that. That just doesn't usually happen. We try to coordinate one team building / fun event a semester for our youth leadership team. And we have a really hard time getting everybody together in person, but we try to just do something casual and usually involving food. We're going to try this spring to design an event that actually works on leadership skills, and that's going to be a first for us, but I think that that'll be just more rewarding for the teams and hopefully kind of keep them engaged. We're about to suffer a lot of senior turnover at the end of the semester, so we're trying to really inspire the younger teams to take an active role and to fill in those gaps next year. I think like all the cafes, we struggle with, a sort of radio silence. Sometimes I send out email, requests to have people sign up for responsibilities, and I don't hear anything back. And then other times I hear lots back. There's always this sort of push-pull where I feel like I sometimes have to nag them to sign up to do things, and then other times where they just take the ball and run with it. So I have no good advice around how to improve that general trajectory, but it just seems to be part of the natural ebb and flow of their time and attention, and I try not to let it get me down. For the dry runs, our leaders, we actually don't do a typical dry run here. That's something that Michelle has integrated really successfully at her sites in New Mexico. But our solution to the fact that we really have a hard time getting everyone together is to do what we call a web chat with the speaker the week before the cafe. And that basically involves getting the speaker online into a online meeting, and the teams can call or log in. And they basically interview the speaker to get the information that they need to introduce the speaker at the cafe. And they also get a chance to hear from the speaker what they're planning to talk about, and in particular, what the activity is going to look like. And that's actually been an awesome format to really workshop the activity, and the teams always have really great ideas on how to modify things or make things more fun. And that seems to work really well for us. We have 12 kids on our leadership team. We'll frequently only get maybe 3 of them logging on to these web chats, but the speaker always leaves feeling like they have a much better sense of the level of the teams, and the teams always have a good time interviewing the speaker. So I'll go ahead and leave it at that. There are plenty of other things we can talk about in the question and answer section. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Danette, as well. We had 2 great presenters right there, and just keep in mind that we will be taking questions and comments after our next presenter. But right now, I'd like to welcome from the Moat Marine Lab and Aquarium in Sarasota, Florida, Gina Santiani. As the Student Engagement Coordinator, Gina primarily manages the college internship program and first-year high school internship programs. Through these programs, she participates in and leads a variety of marine science-focused STEM initiatives, including the Teen Science Cafe. We are pleased to welcome Gina Santiani. Gina?
All right, thanks, RJ. Moat is a marine science laboratory and aquarium, and we have been involved with Teen Science Cafe for 3.5 years now. And when we began with the Teen Science Cafe, the Florida node included the Florida Aquarium in Tampa and Secrets of the Sea in St. Pete. So our cafes focus on marine science and marine biology because all of our sites are either aquariums or marine laboratories. So it makes us a bit unique. But even though we focus on this marine science theme, we always try to include a variety of STEM topics in our Teen Science Cafes. So the Teen Science Cafe aligns really nicely with Moat's outreach mission, and we were already working with local high school students at the time that Teen Science Cafe was introduced. So we thought it paired really nicely and really perfectly with our programs and our mission. So I think over the last 3.5 years, we have learned a lot through trial and error. So I hope by sharing our experience today that you'll find it useful in starting your own cafes. So as far as recruitment, how do we recruit? Well, Moat has had a high school internship program for more than 10 years. And the high school interns are local students that apply to participate in this year-long program. We start in September, and the program goes through May. And within that program, the students complete volunteer work with our education department. They complete a research project, and they also work on professional skill building. So eventually we decided that the Teen Science Cafe would pair really perfectly with this existing high school program we had going. So we decided to put in the Teen Science Cafe coordination into the internship. So who are these students, and how do we get students to the cafe? Well, we have 37 interns in the program. So that's a lot of high school students that are involved with coordinating the cafes. But part of these 37 interns' responsibility is to recruit teams to attend the cafe. So when students then apply to our internship program, if they have attended Teen Science Cafes in the past, it really shows initiative and interest in our programs. And so they're actually giving greater consideration to become a part of our intern program. So then when our students recruit teams to come to the Teen Science Cafe, in effect, they're also kind of recruiting these students to join our internship program as well. Then once they become interns, they join our Teen Science Cafe leadership team. So to make it fun for our interns to recruit students, we have a contest for them. Basically throughout the year, whichever student can bring the most peers to a Teen Science Cafe wins an educational prize. So it's a lot of fun for them. We try to make it fun for them. So as far as organizing the cafe, every school year we get a new crop of students that are starting as interns. So the internship and Teen Science Cafe is usually completely new to them. But we do have students that have participated in this internship program for at least a year and usually are continuing their internship experience into the next year. So they're already experienced with the internship and Teen Science Cafe. So in the beginning of the year, we have these alumni students plan the first cafe, and then all of the new students are required to attend that first cafe so that they can have a better understanding of what Teen Science Cafe is in order to then plan it. And then we actually do the planning of the cafes during our bi-weekly meetings. So every other Wednesday, we meet with our interns, and Teen Science Cafe planning is part of that meeting. So, and then in order to do the planning of the cafe, we break our students into 4 different committees. So we have the hospitality committee, our cafe crew, our promotion team, and our wrap-up group. And I don't know if this is going to come up here, but I have a kind of a template that we use in order to that our teams use in order to that shows their job duties for each group. So you can see hospitality is in charge of things like food and an icebreaker and welcoming students. Our cafe crew is in charge of kind of the logistics of the day, making sure things for the activity are set up. Promotions is, of course, in charge of promoting the event, so making our Facebook page and our flyer and posting our event on our on the Moat website. And then our wrap-up group basically wraps up the cafe from the following month. So they input evaluations, they write a thank you card to our speaker, different things like that. So I'll actually share this template with Sarah, and hopefully she can post it to everybody, and if you find it helpful, I hope you use it. So we have had to reinvent our wheel several times throughout the 3.5 years, and so we learned to be more efficient and started creating templates for anything that we could, basically. So students use these templates and they edit them through each cafe, and we share our templates through our Shutterfly page because all of our students have access to this one Shutterfly page, so they're all able to get on when we're planning the cafes in order to access different templates. And we have templates for our promotional flyers, for our intro and closing of the speaker, for our sign-up sheets and different things like this that we can just kind of edit and use from cafe to cafe. For anything that needs to be updated continuously, we also use Google Drive with our students too, so that they have access to the most updated information, and that's usually when we're inputting evaluations or any kind of data collection like that. As far as dry runs, I think we kind of share a common theme between a lot of the sites in that our students are very constrained on time, and so it can be really difficult to run a dry run, to ask the students to come to a dry run as well as a cafe. So what we've done with this is that during our cafe planning time, for any students who are unable to attend the cafe, we ask them to then participate in the dry run. So basically we'll split the students up. The students that'll sit in on the dry run will go with the speaker and experience that, and then the rest of the students who will be attending with the cafe work on planning the rest of the cafe. It's not something we've been able to do every time because presenters' time is also pretty constrained, but when we have been able to run the dry runs, we found it really successful. The students have really enjoyed it, and the speakers actually find it really helpful. So we try to do that whenever we're able to. We also, there are some things that the teams don't do, and so they don't really coordinate with our speakers just because, again, that's kind of a timing issue. It requires a little more time to be in contact with the speakers, and also the students aren't as knowledgeable about who's available to speak and things like that. So we do set up the speakers and kind of coordinate on that side. So teams are really responsible for the event and getting teams there and making the event a success, and then we're kind of responsible for the speaker presenter portion of it. So, and then as far as keeping teams involved and keeping them kind of motivated, our intern program has a pretty significant number of requirements as far as times that they're required to be here and mandatory events and things like that. And they're given these expectations up front that they're expected to be at certain events, including Science Cafe. And they're also required to participate for the full length of the internship program. So when they start in September, they're expected to continue with us through May when the program's over. But I think what we've seen is that by giving the students these stricter expectations, that they have actually, it's kind of given them accountability then to be at these events. So in our expectations, we outline an absentee policy and a behavior policy, different things like that, and make sure that they really understand that we're expecting them to be here, and the success of the program really kind of is dependent on them. So so that's kind of how we've gotten them to stay engaged and stay motivated throughout the year. And so they really do try to rise to the challenge and try to meet all of those expectations too. And then at the end of the year, we have kind of a big graduation event when they've completed the program. And so they share with their family and friends in kind of an evening presentation, everything that they've done for the year, including the Teen Science Cafe program. And that's about it. I know that's a lot, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thanks.
Thanks, Gina. That was great. We'll make sure to share that template with everyone as well. And Gina, I think I can speak for everyone saying we're really jealous that you got a nice, beautiful palm tree sitting right behind you out that window. Okay, right now we're going to open up the lines for discussion. And while we do this, I'm going to hand it over to our Network Outreach Community Coordinator, Sarah Fike.
Hi, everybody. Okay, we had a few people write in some great questions on the RSVP form. So if I could ask Alex, if you're still there. Alex, are you there? She's calling us by phone. Okay, fantastic. So Alex, Gina, Danette, and anyone else who might be listening, whether you've started a cafe or perhaps you have other experience working with teens in another capacity, you may have some great ideas, and we invite you all to help answer questions. So first I'll just read one by one the questions. There's only 3 of them that came in on the RSVP form. And after that, I'll invite everyone to, we'll unmute all the lines, and you can just go ahead and ask your questions, and we'll see what great ideas we can come up with as a great community of best practice. Okay, so first of all, we had John from Maryland ask, how best do we use students to recruit or interest high school students to participate in the cafes?
For the cafe here in Schenectady, I ask the teens to take flyers to their schools, and I really just ask them to share word of mouth to their friends and family, and sometimes I'll ask them to, please try to bring at least 2 people or bring 3 people just to get the word out within their school.
And yet we do very similar. We ask students to post the flyers around school. We encourage them to give their teachers the information as well, so that the teachers might share it out to their classes. And we've even had students that have asked their teachers if they would be willing to give extra credit to students that might come and participate. And then I also mentioned that we have the competition for whichever student can bring the most peers throughout the year. They get a fun prize at the end of the year, so it makes it a little competitive for them too.
What kind of prizes have you offered?
So we have a dolphin researcher who works with our intern program, and so last year she offered a research day on one of our dolphin boats for the students. So that really kind of lit a fire under them. So that was a cool prize.
That is a really cool prize. Alex, do you have any ways that you get students to recruit? Any methods you've used in the past?
Yeah, the only thing we don't have a contest. I love that idea. We do the flyers. The only other thing I can add to that is, actually I have 2 things to add. One is that a large fraction of our attendees actually don't come from high schools. They're actually part of the homeschool community. And we work with there is a sort of team of people who are in charge of being liaisons for homeschool families in our area to make sure that they're doing what they need to do at home. And so we've actually worked with them to help spread the word about cafes, and that's been really successful. But also, we both of our local high schools in Boulder City have STEM clubs at their high schools that meet over lunch breaks once a week. And we've actually been really successful at getting the STEM clubs to be sort of informally teen cafe clubs. And so what that means is that I help the kids who coordinate the STEM clubs come up with ideas that they can do in their club. And we also then use the club meetings as ways to sort of workshop different ideas, whether it's around an activity or if it's sort of giving them a list of different topics to consider what they'd like to hear about in cafes in the future. So that's been a fun way to involve kids that are already kind of self-identifying as being interested in science.
That's great. And I wanted to share one way one of our coordinators here in New Mexico works the extra credit is they have a sign-out sheet. So originally they had a sign-in sheet for extra credit, which they would then supply. Kids come to the cafe, they sign in or sign out in this case now, and then they would supply that to the teachers that they know have agreed to give as extra credit to their students. What they found originally was that the occasional teen would just come for the very beginning of the cafe, sign in, and then leave. So what they're doing now is having a sign-out sheet, which is at a table staffed by one of the teen leaders, just to make it fair for that extra credit if that is something that a local teacher wanted to do. So, anything else? Any other type of prizes? Is there anyone else out there? Are they all unmuted? Anyone else out there? Oh, okay. So maybe we'll just move on then to the next question that came in, and that is from Cynthia in Rock Hill. She's a network member, and she's in South Carolina at the Museum of York County. She asks, what is the best way to begin marketing your leadership team meetings? And I believe she means in order to establish a brand new group of teen leaders. So if you're a newbie to cafes and you just really want to start with a strong leadership component rather than, as Alex did, which is okay to do, is just start them without the teen leadership and then recruit as teens start coming to the cafes. But if you really want to start right from the beginning with teen leadership group, how might you go about doing that?
At my side, we have a very large group of teens who are volunteers, so we were able to reach out to them, and they were the beginning of our leadership team. So we had a good pool of teens to invite to start this. So we were lucky in that respect.
And I like the homeschool idea is fantastic as well. In most communities, you should be able to do a Google search and find that, and they're often connected to the public school system as well. So, even calling the public school administrator and asking for heads of homeschool communities is a good way to recruit that way too. Gina?
Yeah, and I, kind of very similar to Danette, I would say if you have any teens currently involved at your organization, that's a great way to get started, because that's a pool of students who already have an interest and knowledge about your organization, and so they're probably going to be able to speak to it the best to their peers. So our first year, we actually didn't use our high school intern program. We separated teen science and those were we looked to other high school students throughout our organization to be on the leadership team, and we did get probably about 10 students in that first year before we shifted it to the intern team. But that's probably what that was our first thought process, was using students that are already involved here.
Okay, and then the last question that came in online ahead of time was from Nate from the Mescalero Apache School down south in New Mexico, and he asks, how do you get your students energized?
That can be kind of a challenge. I think somebody already mentioned that it's kind of hard to get a hold of some teens sometimes, so it's hard to get them motivated to answer emails, to get back to you. I like the idea of rewards. That's not anything we've ever tried here, but I think just having it in their hands, they're able to pick the topics, they're able to invite the speakers, self-motivates them.
And Gina, I think you already mentioned that about the expectations that you set really help even energize them and keep them motivated, getting their input and being organized in advance.
Definitely. Yeah, so like I said, just kind of setting all the expectations out in the very beginning of the year, and having them understand that, making an event mandatory, I don't think that hurts, because, we always say, make sure this is on your calendar, you have to be there, and then, they're accountable then to be there. Or, like I said, we do have an absentee policy, so if they're unable to attend, which, again, we are very understanding that things come up, or there's practices after school, or different events that students are involved with. We just ask that they reach out to us and let us know and keep us in the loop. And how we kind of frame this is that they're then building professional skills, because as they're moving on to college and a career, it's important that you are accountable for certain things, and so communication is a really important part of that. And so if they're not going to be at a planning meeting, or they're not going to be at the cafe, they're required to let us know through an email. So I think that's really, again, been helpful in keeping them interested and accountable.
I really like how that actually helps build leadership skills at the same time as keeping them energized, and that is one of the key goals of the Teen Science Cafe network, is to build leadership skills at the same time as introducing them to STEM and getting them excited about STEM. One other thing that might be a good idea is to go into a high school. If you're starting a brand new cafe, go into a high school and talk for 10 minutes in front of a science class. You might contact the school administrator first and see if there are any high school science teachers or after-school STEM clubs, environmental science, astronomy, whatever they have that might be connected to STEM, and see if you can just go in and give a really quick presentation about what you are thinking to do with your cafe and why it is so exciting and how it can be a wonderful opportunity for teens to get involved. And we've had many members have success that way in collecting emails and then following up with them and getting them to come to an ice cream social, for example, and talking about what kind of presenters they want to get and going from there. So that might be a great way to start a brand new teen leadership team as well. Okay, I think now we'll just open it up to any questions anyone else out there may have. So we'll unmute all the lines. And if you have a question for our presenters or for anyone else out there, please go ahead. You have the floor.
This is Carrie at the St. Louis Science Center. I was just wondering, how many people do you usually get at your cafes?
We've been averaging about 14 teens, but recently I've used Constant Contact and my size Constant Contact, and we got 30 teens at that last week. So I can use that again. And hopefully, I think 30 is a great number. That's worked. We've had some cafes in the past that have been around that number.
Yeah, I think for us it's really it can be dependent on the topic. So for some topics are a little more popular than others, but I would say that we tend to get around 20 to 30 per cafe. A lot of those are our leadership team. But I would say we probably have about 5 to 10 new students every cafe. So yeah, we do see some newer students from month to month. So
this is Alex in Colorado, and our cafes are also variable depending on topic. And we actually do something that I don't think many other cafes do, which is we offer some kind of lab tour or as sort of place-based cafe at least once a year, sometimes once a semester if we can organize that. And those tend to be really popular. We always have to limit those. At one of ours last year that we did at one of the kind of space and atmospheric research facilities here in Boulder, we had 85 kids show up. But our typical Wednesday night cafes are closer to 25 or 30 students.
Okay, does
Hello.
anyone? Oh, hello.
Hi, my name is LaShonda Coley. I'm calling from Baltimore, Maryland. And the question that I have is, how do you go about getting the cafe started? We don't have one at all, so how do we go about getting started?
I came into this cafe after it was already started, but one of my site board members just had read about it, and we've got an educator to help run it, and together they invited the leadership teams and just kind of pulled board members to be the first speakers.
I think we were pretty lucky because we already had some resources available that made it I think a little easier for us to get started. So in our laboratory, we already had potential speakers lined up that we kind of had easy access to and could communicate fairly easily with. And then, like I mentioned, we had some different programs where we advertised the leadership committee too, and had students that were interested in participating in that kind of right away. So that's how we got started. But I would definitely say, the Teen Science Cafe webpage and network has a lot of different resources, I think, for people starting out. So definitely check that out too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and Lushanda, I can send everyone following this webinar some useful links. We have those on our website at teensciencecafe.org. There's a resources link, and there's a particular document called First Steps. So you might want to take a peek at that one, but I will send it to you directly as well. Also, just a note to anyone out there who is thinking of starting a brand new cafe, you don't have to actually have your cafe started. You don't have to have held one or even have a leadership team to apply and join as a member. It is free to join, and we're here to actually help you get going as well as help you succeed once you have your initial cafes started. So we are more than happy at any time to have a personal web chat, telephone chat, anything, and talk about your particular situation. So feel free to email info@scieds.org. And we can get in touch with you directly. Are there any questions from anyone else out there?
Hi, this is Carrie Stover from the Caution Science Museum in DC. I was wondering about kind of the logistics of the timing of both the planning meetings and the cafes themselves. Like, are the meetings happening directly after school? Are the cafes happening during the week, in the evening? Kind of the logistics of timing of things.
We have our meetings at 6 p.m. and they run for about an hour. We try to do a monthly meeting, and we usually do. The cafes themselves run Thursdays 6 to 8. And we've changed it several times just to reflect what people seem to respond to most, and people have said Thursdays work the best. So that's what we try to stick to. If a presenter can't do a certain time or day, we're flexible and we will advertise a different time.
This is Alex in Colorado. We're a little different, I guess. We don't have any, except for our sort of once a semester kind of social gatherings for our youth leaders. We don't have any other in-person meetings with the teams. But we do our web chats actually usually around 3:30, and that can be on any day of the week, sort of depending on the speaker's availability. But we do that for like a half an hour, and we basically think it works usually to squeeze that in before kids' after-school activities. And so then we have our cafes actually also early. Our cafes are from 5:30 to 7 on Wednesday nights. It's always the first Wednesday of the month. We found that having that consistency in our schedule is really important, and if a speaker can't make that time and date, then they can't be our speaker. So we've moved them to another month or something like that. But we try to keep that pretty consistent, and Wednesdays just is what worked for our student body. So I suggest definitely once you have a target audience in mind, pulling them to figure out what happens to work for them. I know that Michelle has said repeatedly that like sports and football games in her community are real drivers of attendance. And so she's had to work around that. And for us, it seems to be exams more than anything. And exams, for whatever reason, in our high school tend to be on Fridays. So Thursday nights are bad for kids.
Yeah, Alex, actually, we learned the same thing. When we first got started, we were kind of shifting the days and times all over the place, and every month was a different time or day to try to accommodate everybody, and it just kind of got a little confusing. So we decided that we were going to set it consistently on Wednesday afternoons as well. And, you know, if a student can't make Wednesdays because they have sports practice or something going on, theater, you know, they're in a production or something, we've found that even if they can't make this month or even this season, you know, those things kind of change throughout the year, and calendars change throughout the year. So they usually are able to make it at another time during the year. So we also learned too that making it consistent kind of made it easier on everybody's calendar. And the reason we set ours on Wednesday was because our meetings for our internships take place on Wednesday. So every other Wednesday, our students have their mandatory meetings. And then on an off Wednesday in that month, we will have the Teen Science Cafe. So we found that usually they had clear Wednesdays because they were planning for these mandatory meetings. So we figure Wednesday was a good day to kind of keep the cafes going on. And ours are after school. Sorry, I didn't say that. Ours are from 4 to 5:30. So we figure students will just come directly from school to our cafes.
And Lynn Cross writes in, we hold 2 meetings per month with our teens from 4 to 6 p.m. We have snacks at the meetings to keep them focused. We try to do most of the planning at the meetings, social media posts, introduction scripts, activity planning, etc. So those 4 planning hours are used up. She also writes, Friday nights is when she generally does this from 6 to 7. And, this is when she actually holds the cafe, not the planning meeting. And sometimes they run into competition with local football games in the fall. So it sounds like from everyone that it's a good idea to, do as much, if you don't have a leadership team, as much sleuthing in advance to find out what those high school student type calendars are, and then try to get some input from teens is the best thing you can possibly do. Before even or when you have your leadership team put together, and make it consistent. Okay. Any other questions out there? Oh, there's one more. Oh, here's one from Mickey Joe Sorrell. He says, a question about parents. We've been getting a lot of homeschool parents who want to stay. How do other folks handle this?
So we have not officially banned parents or adults from attending. Even some coworkers will attend some. And we've been lucky in that it has not, they stay to the back, they don't ask questions. I've not had to ask any adults to really, not control the conversation and really allow it to be on about the team. It's been something I've been aware of and really thinking that I'm going to have to do, but I guess we've just really been lucky. A lot of parents do drop off and they don't stay, but they're welcome to so far.
This is Alex in Colorado, and we've actually had some real issues around this. Interestingly, we've only had one parent who I would say fell into the badly behaved category, but our youth leaders have repeatedly said that it totally influences their comfort level in interacting with the speaker and with their peers to have not only parents in the room, but actually more significantly, younger siblings. So we have a nobody but cafe attendees policy at our cafes. And we're lucky because we're in a museum where if, there's plenty of other stuff to do and other places to sit and hang out. And we just have a really strict policy that unless the student has special needs and they need some kind of a, person with them, with that exception, we don't allow anyone under the age of 12 or past 18. So that's just our rule. And now that we have that rule in place, we haven't had very much pushback.
Go ahead, Gina.
We've also encountered this several times, not too often, but same thing. We kind of just try to lay out expectations to the parents, let them know this is 5 teens, 4 teens. So if they do want to sit in the back and listen, and usually kind of not participate, but just kind of be a listener. We have allowed parents to do that in the past, but we do try to discourage it. So in all of our promotional materials, we are sure to say this is a teen event, and we list our ages, and we try to be really clear and explicit about that before the event. But yeah, this is something we've also encountered too. So.
I'm just going to give 2 quick anecdotes of where this has sort of really been important for our group. Actually, at our cafe 2 months ago, we had a speaker talking about lung cancer prevention. And it was really interesting because we're in Colorado where marijuana is now legal. And one of the students asked a question about pot use. And that sparked this entire, the speaker was terrific and just went off on this, okay, this is obviously what the students are interested in. Let's talk about marijuana and lung cancer and other side effects. And I guarantee you that student would not have raised her hand to ask that question, and that, the other students would not have engaged in that conversation to that extent if there had been an adult other than myself in that room, And similarly, we were touring an MRI facility 2 years ago, and our speaker was talking about risk-taking behavior in teens. And they started asking all these questions about like sexual liaisons and drug use. And, one kid admitted to having like jumped off of a crane into a lake, at some building site, and just things like that I felt like it was a real opportunity for them to learn about, how their brain is driving their behavior. And I don't think that dialogue would have happened if there had been little siblings or adults in the room with them. So you never know what's going to come up that they want to follow, that they should be free to, I guess.
In New Mexico here, some of our speakers or presenters have straight out asked the adults in the room, "Oh, are you in high school?" And that usually isn't taken in a nasty way. They've sort of said, "Oh, no," and just sort of taken the hint that they need to stand back and not, be present in the room at that point. So, that's one way. If you do happen to have adults as come in, you might suggest that either yourself as a coordinator or maybe the speaker, if they're that type of personality, might just pose a nice, friendly question to the adults in the room to just make it clear that this is supposed to be led by teens in terms of questioning and participating. And that's the great thing about the Teen Science Cafes is that it isn't generally an out-of-school event. It's meant to engage them in a way that is not typical in schools, and it's definitely one of the draws for most cafes, that there are no adults and it's not led by teachers so much as just a really interesting person having a conversation and finding out what the teens are interested in and telling about themselves and what is so fantastic about their career and their interests. Okay, do we have any other questions out there?
And I apologize, I have to use this computer for one of the classes, so I've got to go deliver this to Tangible Technology. But thanks for having me, and I know I learned a lot.
Thank you, Danette. We appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, are there any questions out there? No? Okay, then at this point I'd like to ask for suggestions for future webinars, webinar topics. Is there something that you would like to have experienced cafe holders chime in about? We can definitely put something together for the next month or the month after, so I'd love to hear your suggestions. You can either type them in the chat box or you can just go ahead and say it out loud. Or you can also email me. You can email info@teensciencecafe.org. info@teensciencecafe.org if you have anything that you would like to have people chime in about on their next webinar. Okay, I'll give it to RJ.
I think that's it for right now. We'd really like to thank our three experts today: Alex Rose from Boulder, Colorado, Danette Carl from Schenectady, New York, and Gina Santiani from Sarasota, Florida. I'd also like to thank all of you who joined us today. We really look forward to hearing back from you. We'll be sending out an email with a link and a copy of this video. It'll be on our YouTube page. And please feel free to help us improve in the future by filling out the survey that we'll be sending out. Again, you can look for us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+. Just look up Teen Science Cafe Network. Thanks again for joining us.